And without further ado, welcome to the JDC West 2021 International Business Case Presentation sponsored by RBC. I want to give a big thank you to our judges for being here virtually with us today. Genevieve Peugeot, Senior Manager Sales and Marketing at Pollard Banknote, Herb Zobel, Vice President Commercial Financial Services at RBC, Hayden Zamet, Manager of New Business Initiatives at Skip the Dishes, and Randy Baldwin, President of Acorn Hill Partners. Competitors, you will have a maximum of 20 minutes to present. Immediately following the presentation, judges will have a total of 5 minutes to ask the presenters questions. I am our academic moderator who will be timekeeper, and I'll be controlling the overall flow of the presentation format. Time intervals will be noted in the Zoom chat by myself beginning at the 10-minute mark. Following the presentation, I'll facilitate the question and answer period. Judges will indicate their intent to ask a question using the hand raise function, which I will then call on them to indicate the next question. No questions or comments will be permitted from the audience at any time. The audience is also prohibited from communicating to the presenters in any forum, including Zoom or via other mediums during the presentation or question period. If you are an observer, please ensure your camera is off and microphone is muted. Once the question period has completed, the Zoom meeting will end. Competitors, you are free to begin your presentation.
Since we're all up early today, I wanted to begin with a quick exercise. So if you guys don't mind joining me in reaching your hands up to the sky. Now stretch a little further. Perfect. Thank you. There's a quote that says, "Colors are the smiles of nature." And we believe that color space has the capabilities to bring this smile to millions of places worldwide. But just like in the exercise we just did, color space has reached the ceiling. But we believe with our strategy of our OR strategy, you'll be able to stretch a little further and reach a little higher. With our OR strategy of grow for more, how to score and retain the core, color space will be able to successfully expand into a new corner of the world and create more of those smiles in a new part of that world. Good morning, my name is Josh, and these are my colleagues, Kenny and Lillian, and we are part of your business development team. We are very excited to be here today to present to you our strategy, the OR strategy.
Our team today set out to answer the key question of what are the next steps for color space to continue their global expansion? Based on this question, we determined 3 key issues that informed our recommendations. Firstly, current markets are saturated, which means that an international expansion is necessary for future growth. So in order to grow for more with an expansion into India. Secondly, international expansion is difficult because of the current external environment and country-specific factors. So in order to do this and how to score, we're going to use a dedicated expansion strategy for India. And lastly, cultural integration must be navigated for these new markets, especially since culture is such a huge aspect of color space. That means retaining the core by building and ensuring cultural alignment with employees. The impact of this is that color space will have the necessary strategic blueprints to facilitate successful expansion into the new country of India.
Next, I'll be taking you through our analysis and exploring our 3 key issues. The first issue that we've identified is that your current markets are saturated, which is prompting another international expansion for your company. And the key question that we wanted to answer is, what are the factors to consider for long-term growth when selecting a country? And we base this off of 3 main factors. The first is the economic outlook and overview of the country. The second is their COVID-19 recovery efforts. And the third is ranking them by the ease of doing business index. And we've evaluated the 3 choices that you presented us with, which is Saudi Arabia and India, as well as Colombia. Now, the main points that we would like to highlight is the economic outlook for the country. So for Colombia, we see that their economy actually has a low productivity growth, which means that they're export dependent. And a lot of their exports are based on non-renewable commodities, which don't set a successful pathway for the future. And with Saudi Arabia and their economic outlook, there's a singular economy, which is primarily based on oil and gas industries, as well as the economy has been contracting for the 5th straight quarter, meaning that their economy is not diversified, as well as they have a large expat population. And one of the things we noticed through our analysis is that 1.2 million expats actually left in 2020, meaning that skilled workers as well as residents there don't typically stay in Saudi Arabia for a long time. And then when evaluating India and the economic outlook, India is an extremely big and diversified economy and have many markets. This is an exciting opportunity as well as presents many challenges with targeting such a large market. However, there's high economic projections, and it's even forecasted to overtake China in economy by the end of next year. Now, after examining these three factors, the main considerations we took into place is that in terms of economy, pursuing a stable economy with diversified markets that employ skilled citizens is the best way to ensure your long-term growth. And in terms of COVID-19 recovery, taking a day-by-day case increase is not an accurate measurement in relation to a country's population size. And additionally, COVID recovery is in sight with the new vaccine release. And so we're thinking of long-term growth, and we view COVID-19 as a short-term implication. And then for the ease of doing business, all three countries ranked relatively similarly. And these countries are more difficult operating environments that you have had experience with. Therefore, these increased regulations should be accounted for in the expansion strategy. All in all, we would recommend India as your expansion, as the next step in your expansion because of their diversified economy and the fact that they are a country of countries. Our key takeaway is, in order to position your company for long-term growth, India is the best market to expand to because of its long-term economic advantage. Now that we've established India as the next place for your future growth, our second key issue is that international expansion is difficult because of the country-specific factors that it brings. So we wanted to explore what are the winning strategies that you can implement within the Indian business environment. So the first strategy we've identified is don't generalize. India is a country of countries, meaning that one state's GDP can be equivalent to a whole country's GDP. And that brings major cultural differences between its states. For example, there are major cultural differences between North and South India. Within North India, there's a younger, less skilled, and more relatively poor population, and they prefer to speak languages such as Hindu. Comparatively, in South India, they're older, more skilled, and have more purchasing power. And they also speak more English or state-specific languages. We'd like to highlight here that in South India, as they have more purchasing power, they'll be more likely to be receptive to your products. And now that we've identified that we don't want to generalize within India, what are the winning regions where you can really hone in and make a successful strategy? So through our research, we've identified the different regions within India and ranked them based on a risk-adjusted opportunity score, as well as the operating environment. And from this, we saw that the Western regions are the most suitable for ColorSpace to expand into. The reason being is that they tend to be more educated as well as have a high purchasing power. And they also speak Hindu and celebrate holidays such as Holi, which place an emphasis on bright colors and is an opportunity for you to localize your product. And we would recommend to expand to these Western regions through a cluster strategy. And the reason why is, according to McKinsey, many multinational companies expand through a tier-based strategy, but we find that with such a large market, it's not enough. By expanding in India through clustered cities within the same region, you're able to maximize your profits as well as reduce your costs by focusing on regions that are similar in cultural similarities. Therefore, in order to be successful in India, ColorSpace must pursue Western Indian markets using a cluster-based strategy. And our last key issue is that the cultural integration must be facilitated in new markets in order to maintain the same type of culture within ColorSpace. So we examined, how do employees in India think, feel, and act? We would like to introduce a potential employee within India, an operations manager named Raj Khatri. And we evaluated him based on the differences in the cultural dimensions, as well as included some factors of change to account for when exploring hiring new employees within India. Therefore, in order for your employees to understand change and how it affects them, a change management plan must be implemented. And lastly, we explore our alternatives, which is the method of entry that will allow you to be successful within India. And we explored this based on how much control it will give your company, how much it will cost the company, and how much experience it will give India to allow you to be successful there. And from this, we see that by buying an existing division, you'll be able to retain the experienced operations and employees to allow yourself to be successful within the strict regulatory and unfamiliar environment within India.
Based off our analysis, we have come up with our recommendation, the OR strategy. The OR strategy includes international expansion, which helps us grow, which allows you to grow into India by purchasing an existing division of another company. The second part of the OR strategy is to be able to understand how to be successful in India by focusing on those clustered cities in Western India. And the last part of this is to ensure that the core of your company is well-trained and understands the culture of the company by developing and managing the company culture. So in order for us to begin, we need to first look at expanding into India. The next phase of growth for Color Space begins with an expansion to India through acquiring a division of a divesting company. We believe that by looking into these three key features, you'll be able to successfully identify companies where they have divisions that you potentially could acquire. The first being strategic synergies. By identifying companies who has divisions that already have an existing network of customers and partners, you'll be able to leverage some of your competencies with their competencies and create synergies for your new organization model. The next part is to have a healthy balance sheet. We understand that your products are ones that are going to be given away as samples. So you need to ensure that your products are, the company that you're acquiring from will have a healthy balance sheet and the costs are already low so that you can continue the same business model. The last part is the skilled laborers. You need to ensure that the laborers that are working within your organization are ones that can flourish in your culture of continuous improvement. We have highlighted some companies as potential targets here, and we think that these are good companies that you should begin to look at in terms of who you should be looking to acquire from. Now, with that expansion in mind, what does the new business model for Color Space look like? Well, we see Color Space as having its headquarters in Winnipeg, and it's very similar but different. What we propose is to negotiate and try and maintain some of the same branding so that Color Space can continue to leverage the existing brand power. What it potentially could be looked at is maybe a blank company, a division of Color Space. This will allow its global headquarters to still maintain the key decision making, but in terms of the day-to-day operations, it'll be run by that country management in the last part, where we will look to work with an existing employees as well as their teams in order to make the day-to-day operations in the plant, as well as maintain some of those local cultures and customs. Now, with that strategic move into India, Color Space needs to ensure success by leveraging its core competencies, focusing on the right areas, and leveraging the company synergies. We understand that you're looking to upgrade your machinery in the Winnipeg plant, and we believe that once you replace that machinery, you can successfully move that machinery into India so that the new plant in India will be able to have some of the similar technologies in order for them to produce at the scale that you've been able to produce. Now, with that in mind, where are the regions that we should focus on? Well, we believe Western India should be your key area of focus, with the two states being Maharashtra as well as Gujarat. In Maharashtra, we see that Mumbai is a key economic hub in that area with a lot of high-skilled talent, as well as being one of the top cities for foreign investments. Another key piece is that it has one of the largest per capita Hindu populations in India, which allows you to leverage holidays such as Holi that we talked about earlier. In Gujarat, we recognize that it's a historic region of India, as well as being a hub for trade due to its proximity to both Mumbai as well as Karachi in your neighboring country. Another initiative we wanted to highlight is that there are actually major governmental investments into infrastructure in this area, so it is a great area for you to expand into. Now, with all this change in mind, a change management strategy needs to be implemented in order for the successful expansion into India, as well as creating that satisfaction and building that culture within the team. Peter Drucker famously said, "Culture eats strategy for breakfast." But one of his lesser known quotes is on alignment and how by aligning your teams, you'll be able to successfully mitigate a lot of the risk of your organization. So having a change management team that begins with yourself, Karina, as the director of revenue growth and market expansion, as well as maybe someone like Raj, who we talked about earlier, who as one of your change champions. They will facilitate the collaboration between some of the changes in Canada and what we're looking to do in India so that it fits the needs of both parties. And we believe that this will allow the successful integration of change. What this will look like is something like this, where we have three key parts of our model. The first is to ensure communication and collaboration. By having transparent, clear communication, you'll be able to, and the access to change champions, you'll be able to answer questions and provide clarity for the employees of both countries and be able to foster collaboration. The second part is to educate and improve. So by cross-training, you'll be able to increase collaboration as well as feedback can be received from employees through the testing of your new procedures. And the last part is to celebrate those successes. When you're able to implement a lot of this strategy, you want to make sure that the employees know that they've done a good job. So you want to celebrate and acknowledge their successes.
But how can we implement this at Colorspace? For our first recommendation, it involves two key phases: purchasing a division and creating a plan. Our milestones here is to finalize an agreement to purchase an existing division in India by June of 2021. This allows us to move on to our second milestone in developing a strategic plan for the future, which is determined collaboratively between employees in both Canada and India as well. We've outlined the steps here, but our main KPI for this is to reach at least one agreement to purchase a division and have it confirmed by June of 2021. Moving on to our second recommendation, this involves planning and moving strategically, with first conducting research and analyzing those results to determine new ideas in June of 2021 as well, in line with our purchasing date. So the results from the research are analyzed to facilitate the further expansion and determine future growth points. And next, hiring new employees for these different regions. So we realize that purchasing a division in India might not all be further sales in the areas that we're looking at. So hiring new employees, training them in both the virtual environment is necessary for future growth as well. And we're hoping that this will be completed by October of 2021. And our main KPI is this is having three new ideas generated for the expansion in India for our future planning needs. And lastly, the change management plan that we mentioned earlier. This is key in integrating all of the cultures and ensuring that the successful expansion is completed. The first milestone here is assigning a change team at Colorspace and identifying them in order to lead the expansion. And we want to do this by assigning the team, releasing employee surveys, making those changes, and then developing training materials and planning that town hall for the future. Our second milestone with that annual town hall is in December of 2021 at the end of the year, where we can review the success and celebrate it with our new employees from India. This involves communicating and releasing the internal memo as soon as possible and ensuring that everyone is aware of the change, identifying the change champions to answer all those questions and communicate the benefits, and then conducting that cross-training from August to October. And this is really facilitating that Kaizen approach that Colorspace uses throughout their organization. And then in November, practicing and testing procedures to receive feedback is the next important step, while December is where our annual town hall is held. Our KPI for this is an employee satisfaction rate of above 80% to ensure that everyone in India is happy and as integrated into our organization as possible.
So with a project as large as this, you need to ensure that your financials are able to be met, are able to meet the needs of your organization. So first, we wanted to take a look at your revenue. How we derive your revenue is by looking at the total addressable market of India and its paint industry, which is about 99 billion. But in terms of the color chips, the service addressable market, which is the market that your organization can address, is about 0.1% of that total market. And in terms of color space, your market share of that total market is about 1% is as an estimate, due to the fact that there are a lot of operators in the space, as well as companies that are already working in both not only paint manufacturing, but also the color chip production. That is how over the total of 3 years, we calculated that you would generate approximately $3.278 million in Canadian dollars. Now, in terms of your costs, we wanted to highlight that over the 3-year span, you'll be looking at approximately $2.725 million, with the main cost coming from the purchase price of that division, which we took a conservative and higher estimate just to make sure that we accounted for the potential for economic changes. Now, with those costs in mind, we wanted to look at your profits. Well, in year 1, due to the fact that you are expanding and growing, you will be operating at a loss in terms of those profits of approximately 1.3 million. But by the end of the total project, you're actually profitable by over 553,000. We've highlighted 3 keys from our recommendation that help in terms of your finance. And with a task as large as this, there will obviously be some risks. And we've highlighted these risks for you, including COVID, regulations, and employee buy-in. We'd love to continue and discuss these further in our question and answer period. But overall, we believe with our strategy, ColorSpace will be able to not only reach the roof, but expand beyond it and grow into the future with a successful expansion into India, which builds on its current capabilities and expands for more and leverages some of those skills that you already have. Thank you so much for your time, and we'd love to open up the floor for any of your questions.
Thank you, competitors. The judges may now begin raising their hands. Beginning with Herb.
Great presentation. Thank you very much. Just a question, and you did touch on it. COVID, it is coming, we hope, to an end. Do you see that we'll have any challenges with that?
Yeah, so that is one of the things that we took into consideration. And through our analysis, we found that actually in India, like, they have declining cases and they're managing their COVID-19 quite well for their population size, as well as including virtual ways to learn and connect with teams through our change management plan is how we're planning on mitigating that.
Thank you.
The next question will come from Randy.
Yes, thank you. Good presentation. My question related to the costs that you used in your estimates. What information sources did you use to arrive at those costs?
Thank you, Randy, for the question. So the estimate of the $2 million was actually provided by the company ourselves for the purchase price. In terms of some of those fees, what we looked at are some of the costs of doing legal cross-border business in terms of legal fees. And we actually set these as kind of budgets, so benchmarks. So rather than looking at an exact cost, we set a budget for how much we want to spend in terms of these fees. And these estimates are actually very conservative estimates so that it provides a realistic calculation of how much you could potentially earn and what it potentially looks like in terms of costs.
Thank you.
The next question will come from Jen.
Hello, thanks. Yeah, awesome job. So the mode of entry you've chosen is to buy division, and I'm curious to know if that's if you would consider that a safe, moderate, or risky approach, and if it's safe, what would be maybe the moderate alternative? Say if we didn't have any luck with being able to keep our name, ColorSpace, if that was important to us.
Yep. We thought that buying an existing division, especially in the context of COVID-19, was the least risky method of expansion, especially since virtually, we would have to be going there virtually, and we can't ourselves go over to the country and facilitate the expansion. So buying an existing division where they have current relationships, current customers, and those skilled employees was really important and essential in the success of our implementation. And we do realize that purchasing a division and having those namesakes is a key part of our implementation, but having, with our other ColorSpace partners and how we've worked with our past partners before, that hasn't been that much of an issue, and we're able to facilitate this by calling them color space partners and having it as a division of color space. So keeping that existing brand recognition within the country can help facilitate the expansion as well.
The next question will come from Hayden.
Hi, thanks, and good job. Looking at the Hofstede insights that were provided in the case, what would you identify? It looked like you had aggregated those totals as the biggest challenge when you were working on a solution, and how you would overcome that through the strategic recommendations you've provided.
So Kenny, if you could navigate to slide 14. So when considering the cultural challenges between Canada and India, we learned that they differ along 3 or 4 key factors. First is their attitudes towards technology, how they communicate, how they trust other people, as well as the power distance. And from this, we wanted to incorporate aspects within our change management plan that build upon this. So for example, for power distance, as India tends to have more respect for the power distance and positions of power, we recommend that in order to gain buy-in for your culture, your change champions should be operational managers such as Raj. And this way he'll be able to lead and influence his employees, which are like family to him. Secondly, they're very tech aware in India because of the amount of innovation they've had. So we expect that their attitudes towards automation won't actually be an issue.
And that's all the time we have for questions. Thank you so much to our competitors and our judges. And I ask that we all now can exit the Zoom call.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.